Saturday marked 20 years since the deadliest ever terror attack on U.S. soil.
As for the next 9/11, KPIX5's Juliette Goodrich on the warnings about another growing security threat that has left us vulnerable to catastrophe.
Thanks to cyberspace and satellites, the world is at our fingertips, but experts warn it's left us vulnerable.
When it comes to keeping time, look no further than Dorian Clare. Here, when an antique clock gets fixed, so too does good time, an extremely valuable resource.
The world very much depends on accurate time because we're all linked together.
These days, in mind-boggling ways, thanks to GPS, time keeps the world ticking, including the power grid, communications, and finances.
But everything's dependent on GPS.
GPS is a system of 31 satellites orbiting the Earth. On each one, multiple atomic clocks that provide precise time, up to a billionth of a second. They keep vital systems back on Earth synchronized and working.
It is a fantastic system.
Professor Mark Weiss is an expert in precision time. He helped build GPS, but Weiss has grown increasingly alarmed about any major event that could wipe it out.
It would make the pandemic look like child's play.
GPS has no backup. That makes it a target and highly vulnerable.
It's got this big bullseye on it because it's the only system we've got. And boy, you take it down, you kill the United States of America.
The power grid would go down. ATMs, credit cards, and high-speed financial transactions would stop. And 911 would struggle to find you.
Attacking GPS would ripple through every facet of American society.
Dana Goward is a GPS expert. He sees a growing number of attempts to interfere with GPS by jamming or spoofing signals.
I'm very concerned about a 9/11 attack focused around GPS. Our adversaries have every motivation to do that.
China and Russia both have multiple backups for their GPS, including ground-based systems. Both have also developed anti-satellite technologies.
We need to get the bullseye off of GPS.
But it's not the only threat.
Space is becoming a major domain in the world, but it's all enabled through cyber and the needs for cybersecurity.
Dave DeWalt is a longtime cybersecurity expert. He says cyberspace is the other big target.
I like to say we're prepared, but we're not prepared.
DeWalt points to the recent hack that took down the largest fuel pipeline in the U.S., leading to fuel shortages. He says cyber attacks are escalating in part because the U.S. is so wired. More countries have cyber weapons than nuclear arms.
And I talk about it as the fifth battleground.
This year, ransomware attacks could reach $57 billion in damages. An attack is cheap to deploy.
You don't need a F-14 fighter plane. You don't need a B-2 bomber. You don't need boots on the ground. You can simply sit at a computer.
Former U.S. Secretary of Defense Leon Panetta has warned of digital 9/11 for years.
If it took down our electric grid system, if it took down our financial systems, our government systems, our transportation systems, a cyber attack could very well paralyze the United States of America.
Experts say both GPS and cyber need to strengthen defenses to prevent a catastrophe and loss of life. Easier said than done.
Why didn't we harden cockpit doors, even though we had over 100 aircraft hijackings before 9/11?
As for Dorian, he says there's no time to waste. Fix it.
What a disorganized place this world would become.
GPS is one of our most valuable assets. It adds about $1.5 trillion to the U.S. economy every year. But losing it would cost us $1 billion a day. In San Francisco, Juliette Goodrich, KPIX5.
Turns out the past 3 administrations gave approval for a GPS backup system, but the funding never materialized.